Okay, so I hope you had a nice lunch. We will continue the program now with the responsible gaming session. We will be joined once again by Bill Pascrell online, and the session is moderated by Pieter Remmers, CEO and founder of Assissa, who is from the Netherlands, and I hope to hear more about those windmill restrictions in the games. Okay, so I'll leave you to it.
Okay, thank you very much, Zoltan. I think it was Vienna the first time we met. Isn't that a very long time ago?
Yes, 2017.
Well, okay, you know it better than I do. And I feel a bit sorry about the competition of today, IMGL and Morten Ronde and Jörg Hofman, who is supposed to be here. And honestly, I'm a member of IMGL as well, but I decided not to go to London, but to join you at this conference here. For those who don't know me, Pieter Remmers is my name. I'm in what I always call the responsible gambling industry since 1988. I'm very old. So it's all started with Holland Casino, the land-based casino industry in the Netherlands. We started to work with them in this matter, and that's what we still do even after all those years. And we do this for a lot of other companies as well. Mainly consultancy, advice, training for the land-based operators, casinos, slot machine arcades, lotteries, and also online companies. I'm not going to mention all of them, but just keep in mind that companies like Gausselman, Novomatic, IGT, and Kindred, Bet365 are our customers, so to say. I'm not going to tell you about all the other things that we have been doing in the past 30 years, because then we are not finished before Dan has to leave, and because he has to catch a plane. So I will do a brief introduction of our speakers, so Dan and Bill. I have asked them to give a very short statement of about 4 or 5 minutes, so to say, and talk about their top 3 related to responsible gambling. And then I have a bunch of questions left, which could easily fill the whole afternoon. So let's see how it goes. So Dan is the vice president of Rombet, the Romanian Gambling Organizers Association, and he is also vice president of the Responsible Gambling Association, a not-profit and non-governmental organization dedicated to the prevention and treatment of problem gambling. He is the former president of the Romanian gambling regulator, ONJN, and he published a while ago the ethical code on advertising in gambling. So I think advertising is part of the things that we will talk about a bit more later as well. Bill, as you probably have seen this morning as well, is partner in Princeton Public Affairs Group, the largest lobbying firm in New Jersey. And as we have learned this morning, Bill has been a lawyer, strategic advisor, consultant throughout the US, Canada, Israel, Europe, South America, and Australia, and numerous gambling clients, operators, land-based and online, very much involved in the campaign to legalize sports betting in the USA. And I think I'll leave it here. Otherwise, I need 10 more minutes to introduce Bill as well. Maybe, Dan, are you ready for your couple of minutes?
Yes, thank you very much, Peter. I wouldn't say you are very old. I would say you have very much experience on the gambling industry and on responsible gambling, because you are a young spirit. And you asked us to name 3 top issues that bothers us and keep us busy regarding the responsible gambling subject. I've started my journey into this industry more than 10 years ago, not 30 years ago as you, 12 years ago. And I was first somehow struck by the misunderstanding of the general public of our industry, about the gambling industry. When you are asked where are you working, and you mentioned the gambling industry, everybody will say, whoa, gambling industry. This for general public means money laundering, some mafia, some relation with prostitution and so on. Every single bad thing, it's in line with gambling. Maybe it came from the historical part of development with the period with the Las Vegas when it was built and with the mafia money and so on. But in any case, and in order to change somehow this spirit, but the main reason was the fact that I had the chance to run with one, I think the first study about prevalence of gambling, prevalence of problem gambling in Romania. And when I first get in touch closely with an addicted person, it was very, very sensitive issue. So I switched from, not switched, but focused my activity on responsible gambling area. And since then, I think we in Romania, we did some very good things, and we are continuing to develop these programs. The first, let's say, the main thing, it's the Responsible Gambling Association, which is funded by 3 industry associations, namely Rombet, Romslot, and Romanian Bookmakers. And also, we have individual funding from companies, for gaming companies. So everything is funded by the industry without any direct involvement in the programs. These programs are focusing on prevention, education, and treatment. How do we do this? Prevention. We have a program conducted by I think you, Pieter, met Dr. Cristian Andrei. Yeah, he's going to high schools and have some discussion with people, with the students about budget, about entertainment, about choosing friends, about limits in spending their budget on clothes, on food, on entertainment. And it is nothing about directly saying about gambling, but it's a sort of preparing them for the time when they they reach the limit, the legal limit of 18, and they are allowed to enter in a gambling hall or to play online. It's a very entertaining activity. It's everybody, even teachers who took part of these sessions, are very much, let's say, involved in such a kind of new approach towards education. Second, it's about second project. It's treatment. We have a helpline 24/7, non-stop, and everybody which is who is either going online on our website or on a live chat, they are approached by a professional psychologist, and they guide them through the process of, first of all, to establish the level of problems they have. They have some red code, yellow code, orange code, and green code, which means how severely they are affected by the gambling. And according to these codes, they are directed to different channels of assistance. They are invited to approach a professional psychologist live in person. We are paying for 5 sessions. We as an association, we are paying for 5 sessions in order to have the possibility to go further into the treatment process. And it is a very, very successful, but also very expensive program. To have an idea about the costs, the annual budget of our association, the Responsible Gambling Association, approaches 240,000-250,000 euros per year. I think it's a lot of money for Romania, for the gambling industry, but I am happy that this amount is going exactly where is needed.
Number three?
Number three, it's education of operators' staff, which is directly in contact with the players. This is a new project. We are developing it this year, and I think it's one of the things that will directly involve operators into seeing and realizing the impact that a trained staff could have in early detection of problem gambling issues with the customers, with the players. I think it's a good. Yes, Pieter, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Bill, can you hear us?
Yes.
In fact, that's a stupid question. That's what people always do when you are a Zoom or Teams meeting. Can you hear us? Yes. I can't see you. Yes, I can see you. Are you in a car now?
Yeah, I'm in my BMW heading to a meeting with a dozen governors from across America that I'm speaking to this morning. So I apologize. Hopefully you can hear me.
I hope you're standing still.
I'm driving.
Oh, you're driving. Okay.
Yes.
So anyway, if you are supposed to give a brief introduction and think of your three main topics, I mean, or maybe I should just start with an article that I read saying gambling is booming in New Jersey. New Jerseyans bet over 1 billion on sport betting last month. I mean, so what do you do in the USA since you've introduced sports betting related to responsible gambling?
Yeah, Pieter, first of all, let me thank you for your kind introduction. I appreciate it. Very generous. Dan, it's always a pleasure to be in your company. I wish I could be there brushing shoulders because you and I are like-minded. And it's an honor to be on this panel with you and Pieter. Hello to everyone again. Thank you for listening to me this morning with Simon in the fireside chat. Let me just say a few quick items top end to sort of personalize this because this isn't just a casual thing for me. I am very engaged and involved in the beautiful online and retail gaming industry, from horse racing, lottery, esports, payment processing, affiliates, sports betting, poker, casino, you name it. And I remember when my two older children, my two boys, Christopher and Billy, said to me a few years ago, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Dad, why are you involved in a National Council of Problem Gambling? You work for all those companies that promote gaming and create the problems. And that was very revealing to me. As they say, from the mouth of babes, oftentimes comes wisdom. I am privileged to be a part of a foundation just celebrating its third anniversary, the Entain Foundation US for Integrity and Responsible Gaming. So, yes, I'm being very well compensated to be involved in this, but this is also a very big passion to me. We need to learn in America the value proposition of what's happened in Europe in many jurisdictions, particularly and most prominently the UK, where gaming was proliferated amongst 2,000 different operators, very different than a more closed skin market in America. And that created a ton of challenges, and the industry, with all due respect, ran amok in many jurisdictions. There was no real thought process, much like, for the most part, the history of the brick and mortar casino industry in America, and perhaps some would agree throughout the world, where they treated the gambling addicted customer as a VIP. The gaming industry anywhere in the world, and particularly in the very new and nascent online gaming industry in America, cannot afford to do that. So let me talk about 3 principal points and then I'll clam up. Dan, I appreciated everything you said. I think what you're doing is extraordinary and important. We have to understand something, that gaming cannot be used as a coping mechanism, as many people did throughout the world during the global pandemic. That's number one. Entain and many other organizations like Kindred are now getting more and more involved in a meaningful way to address consumer protection, player protection, and RG. We have commissioned a 3-year study with Harvard Medical School, $10 million US, to do a very good academic-based research study on exactly what's going on in the industry, not just sort of people's opinions, but fact-based research. Number 2, we created a gaming institute for integrity, compliance, and RG at my alma mater, Seton Hall Law School, which is just outside Manhattan in Newark, New Jersey. And number 3, which has multiple parts, we're working with Epic Risk Management out of the UK, which is a global company for education and advocacy for not only players in professional and collegiate sports, but also young people. We need to get to young people before the problem. It's prevention, not just therapeutic means after the fact. Prevention is critical. And so we're working with Epic Risk Management in multiple collegiate locker rooms and professional locker rooms with soccer, Major League Baseball, hockey, PGA, NBA, NFL. And in addition to that, we're working with some incredible former athletes. Charles Oakley, former New York Knickerbocker, which has co-founded an organization called My Wager Score, which is like a FICA score. When you oftentimes get a mortgage, you need a credit score, FICA score. This is a wager score, and we're going on college campuses throughout the U.S. to educate players before they're of legal gaming age of the do's and don'ts and what to do and what not to do. Pause, stop, be responsible, don't bet over your head, and don't go down the black hole. We're also involved with Jason Williams, former New Jersey Net basketball player. He has an organization called Rebound in Florida, which up until 6 months ago was predominantly focused on alcohol and drug abuse. We've now, thanks to Entain, incorporated a full gambling addiction program there. The problem with that program is it's very expensive. We need to try to find a way to introduce programs like that that are not so expensive, that governments can embrace, and that the common man and woman can afford. And then finally, in addition to my trusteeship with the Entain Foundation US, I'm also joined by Martin Lichka on that foundation, as well as Amani Toomer, the Super Bowl champ, New York Giant phenom. And that gets a lot of attention from people, particularly young people, because they certainly know the name, they idolize him, and he's putting his heart into educating people. As Dan said, education, education, education. which is the one of the main pillars for prevention. Thank you, Pieter.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Maybe just a question to continue this situation regarding research, because there's always the issue that we say we need evidence-based research because we can't do without. But what I usually see is that if we do evidence-based research, it takes 3, 5, maybe even more years before we know what we want to know today, if you understand what I mean. So that's one thing. So the other thing is, then I always say maybe we should look at best practices as well, so that at least we have a solution for the time being on this very moment. And I have a supplementary question, because there's a lot of discussion about prevalence rates. And I think it was mentioned briefly this morning as well about the prevalence rates in the UK, of which we know, if you look at the official figures, they went down in the past half a year. So it's less than 1% of all those who are playing that have a problem. You see a kind of stabilization in Europe, in the European countries as well, regarding the increase of the problems. In fact, there is no increase. So my question then would be, and then it would be a question for Dan as well, for you, Bill, is, are we making the problem bigger than it is? Then you start first.
Yes, thank you. I think the starting point is who is doing the prevalence study, who is financing the prevalence study, and how is this prevalence study effectively done. If we are looking at UK, in UK, they started, I think, in 1999, the first prevalence study. It was a very serious program, a very serious study with a lot of questions, a lot of issues. And since then, I realized that these studies went softer and softer and softer. And I'm wondering if the figures, even the UK Gambling Commission said that there are differences between what is reporting one prevalence study and what are their figures regarding the problem gamblers percentage. And I think that we should sit, or at least let the academics sit down and establish a system which should be beyond any doubt that it is correct, that is the results are real, and it is not favoring one side or the other. Maybe I'm not accusing anybody, but maybe there are some institutions, medical institutions, or organizations who would like to have figures as high as possible regarding the money they could receive in order to treat these problem gamblers. And on the other hand, we could have the industry, which of course would be very, let's say, comfortable to have figures going lower and lower in order to show that the effectiveness of responsible gambling projects they develop.
Okay, Bill, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, I think Dan's absolutely correct. You have to find out the genesis of the funding source and what's behind the academic studies. I will assure you of one thing. The two studies that we've commissioned through Entain, Harvard Medical School and UNLV, those are very reputable organizations that are not going to be influenced by the dollars that are put in their coffers on their academic research. They're not going to ruin their great brand and reputation. But I agree with Dan, you have to follow the money. That's critical. These studies do take time. One of the things I'm particularly interested in and focusing on, and I want to share a quick anecdote, if I may, Pieter, is what's happening with the rate of suicide related to gambling, but not just gambling, in the UK. If that in any way happens in any jurisdiction in America, there'll be a explosion of regulatory requirements that the industry is not going to like. And you know, most companies are about generating revenue. They don't want to hear that they have to pause a player or stop a player. The fact that America does not have a national self-preclusion list is insane. So for example, if my son develops a gambling problem and precludes himself in New Jersey, if he's having a night on the drink one night, he could just cross the border into PA, Pennsylvania, or New York and gamble without anybody really knowing he has a problem or he's on a self-preclusion list. That is, that has to be addressed. And I think the way we're going to address it is as a result of the study that Harvard and UNLV will do, bilaterally, that we'll introduce to every regulator throughout the country. And final point, Peter, I want to direct everybody in the audience, and I'm happy to share it. You want to reach out to me, I'm easy to get. Pascrell at ppag.com. I'm on LinkedIn. But we worked, Entane, Martin Litchka, Amani Toomer, and myself, with the DGE in New Jersey for the past 2 years, and they just announced in May standards and principles that are going to go into effect January 1, requiring companies to have an RG lead, requiring companies to have technology and pause controls in place, and not just looking at putting a 1-800 number on your consumer-facing page and checking the box and feeling you've done your part, but having something behind that 1-800 number that is staffed with people that can get you to help should you need it.
Okay, thank you. Maybe just about the central register, because there's one thing that you mentioned, you don't have it in the USA, and honestly, it's probably very difficult. That's the same situation in Europe, I would say, because if you look at individual countries, they all want to make their own decision and there are no connections. We had a conference last week in Oslo, and there was one guy in the audience that was focusing on, can you make a kind of international self-exclusion register, so to say. That's what we tried 15 years ago. But then we found out, because when we did this online accreditation and certification project, we found out that it's just not doable, so to say, unless you have a huge mainframe that can connect everyone with each other. So maybe we should just focus on the single jurisdictions, the single countries as well. Do you have a central database in Romania?
No, unfortunately not. It is a legal provision for each online operator. I repeat, for each online operator, to keep this self-exclusion list and to keep it to not allow to a gambler who self-excluded himself to gamble on their website. But as Bill mentioned, it's even simpler than in United States, because if I would self-exclude from one operator and suddenly I would like to gamble, I can press 2 buttons and make an account to another operator, another online gambling provider. So it's very easy. So at least I would be very happy to have a national level self-exclusion system in order to not allow a gambler, a problem gambler, or somebody who doesn't want to play anymore to self-exclude himself, and to be sure that he will not be allowed to play on any licensed operator in that jurisdiction. Unfortunately, there are many ways to circumvent this, especially if you are a little bit technical, or you can go on the black market, yes, and play if you really would like to spend some time, some fun, have some fun.
Okay, let's switch the subject a little bit and go to, because you mentioned technology, so to say. And what about technology, or maybe I should say AI, artificial intelligence, and responsible gambling? Maybe you are aware of a number of companies that are working on those things. You have, since a very long time already, PlayScan, which is a kind of traffic light system that they used in Sweden. Mentor from Austria is one of the others. BetBuddy, part of Playtech. Mindway from Denmark is another one. Can we foresee a role for AI in our responsible gambling efforts to prevent problem gambling? Bill, could you say, are you still there?
I'm here. Yes.
Very good. I don't
Yes,
see you
Pieter.
in between. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, can you see me now?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I apologize for being in the car, but I'm doing my best to multitask. I think all of the companies you mentioned have very powerful innovations and technology that I am also working with. I had a very good conversation with the C-suite folks at Playtech in Laguna Beach this past week when I was out there, kind of, working both to clean up the mess created by this California ballot referendum for sports betting, which is going to fail miserably, unfortunately. We're not going to see sports betting legalized in California for a while. AI is another critical piece to having a comprehensive multi-channel approach to RG. It's not a total solution, but it's another piece to the puzzle. And I think many companies are realizing that they need to start to double down on technology, because if they don't, as I said earlier, Pieter, perhaps you and Dan heard me, in America, we're one newspaper headline away from some politician's son or daughter, husband, wife, mother, father, brother, sister, from getting this whole industry shut down. It will go like a domino effect, a cavalcade of regulations that the industry's not going to want. So unfortunately, oftentimes RG leads within these operators don't command the respect, nor do they have the authority. I think that's going to gradually change because, of course, they're competing with the website people and the salespeople and the affiliates. And, if we're going to have a sustainable gaming industry in any jurisdiction, we better stay ahead of the curve. And I think AI is a critical piece to that.
Okay, thank you. Dan, any comments?
Regarding AI, artificial intelligence, I'm very much aware, and I doubt that the definition of intelligence applied to us as humans could be applied to a machine. I'm writing on my mobile phone some messages to my wife, and I often say, I love you.
Don't do that anymore.
No, because when I write an email yesterday evening to Pieter, my prediction keyboard said, when I said I, immediately completed it, love you, Pieter. And this artificial intelligence is basically a sort of a sequence of algorithms. They are defined by people, not by the machine. And if the algorithms are wrong, for sure the result it's like the usual shit in, shit out. So I think we are at the very beginning of the artificial intelligence. Some people exaggerate this intelligence. It doesn't have, for the moment, anything to do with human intelligence. They are just algorithms, and for sure, what Bill said, it's part of the puzzle. It can help, but don't overrule these systems. They will never take our role as humans in a decision.
Okay, so in fact what you say, and that's what was agreed on by Simo Dragicevic from Playtech in the past as well, saying this is one way of looking at things and using technology, so to say, but human behavior, or maybe I should say human interaction, is one of the key issues related to this as well. I would like to focus a bit more on responsibility, if you don't mind, because what you do see nowadays. I mean, when I was doing presentations in the past, let's say 10 years ago, my very last slide always was, but at the very end, the individual player is responsible for his or her own behavior. In fact, in a lot of countries, I'm not allowed to say that anymore. And that's what you can see, because in countries like Sweden or the UK or in Finland or in the Netherlands or in Belgium, we now talk about shared responsibility. And if you are not compliant, the Gambling Commission gives you a fine, whether it's Sweden, the UK. I think Entain got a huge fine recently in the UK. And it all has to do with shared responsibilities, so to say. So, how are we going to deal with it? I mean, what's the role of the regulator and what's the role of the operator in this case? Bill, it's up to you again.
Yeah, these are really good questions, Pieter. Entain had a fine. Others are coming down the road, similar, 17 million pounds. And Entain is taking responsibility for what their actions are. They're not taking it lightly, and they're not brushing it off. They're committed to this issue. It's unfortunate what's happened, but in any corporate environment, sometimes you have people in the organization which don't necessarily embrace the corporate culture of RG. We cannot, in this industry, push off responsibility onto the regulators or our consumers. We need to protect our consumers and to understand that in order to create a sustainable, long-lasting gaming industry, we need to self-regulate, we need to take the responsibility, and we need to stop rushing it off on others. And I think that cultural change is starting to happen in America, but it better happen quicker, because the regulators are not going to tolerate mistakes, mishaps, and headlines of people being preyed upon by gambling companies. And the final I will make, the most important issue that can be accomplished to begin the process of addressing responsible gaming is something that Dan alluded to earlier. You must understand as a politician and as an electorate that the best way to begin to address RG is to regulate, legislate, and legalize the issue, because it's happening in your jurisdiction, whether you legalize it or not, in the black market. And the only way to penetrate the black market, which could give two shits about responsible gaming, is to legalize it and then begin to show the government that they now have a responsibility to go after the black market in collaboration with the regulated market.
Hey, but would you then say, just a follow-up question, that the regulator should let's say regulate into detail what kind of efforts need to be taken, like self-exclusion, limited visit, limited time, etc., or what is the role of the operator? Should the operator be more proactive, so to say, taking over part of the responsibility?
Yeah, no, that's my point. I'm sorry I didn't make it more clear. I'm not saying it's the responsibility of the regulator to do regulations on this. I'm saying let's get ahead of the curve and self-regulate. The industry needs to do that in advance of regulatory requirements, because it'll be a far easier, more comfortable, and more productive environment if the operators take the lead as opposed to the regulators?
If I may intervene, yes. We have, just to illustrate what Bill is saying, we have in Romania a fee, another tax for the operators, for the licensed, to pay to the National Gambling Office a certain amount per year for responsible gambling projects. And now the National Gambling Office is sitting on a bag of roughly 3 million euros, and he did nothing in the last 3 years, since it started for 3-4 years, when he started to get this money. And the main reason is that they do not know what to do. And even worse, they do not know how to start a collaboration with an association like our Responsible Gambling Association, which is already doing a lot of things, as I mentioned in the beginning, on the responsible gambling. On the other hand, I understand them because I was there. The general regulatory framework, it's not simple in Romania, and it's not easy to subsidize or to pay from a regulator some projects developed by entities which are not owned by the state. So it's complicated. But in any case, it took 3 years and nothing is moving. We as an association, as mentioned, we have programs, we have projects, we present them. They say, okay, it's fine, I understand, you are doing something, but they're not pushing into financing us or to develop their own programs. They do not have the staff, they do not have the knowledge. They are somehow, their hands are tight.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm afraid I have still a lot of questions, but I'm asked not to ask them, so to say. So I will stop the session at this very moment, thanking Bill and Dan for their contribution on this. And honestly, I would like to say, as I told you in the beginning, I'm 34 years in this business, which is a very long time, but there's still a lot to do, and probably not by me for the greater part in the future. But thank you very much, and thank you, Bill and Dan.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Do you want me to say anything about the Dutch situation now or not? Shall I do that? Okay, because I don't know if you know, but if you apply for a Dutch license, you have to do a lot of work, so to say. And a very important part related to what our gambling authority wants is, first, of course, you have to find a lawyer who can help you and assist you in completing all the forms. But on the perspective of responsible gambling, you have to appoint what is called an addiction prevention representative. So you need a dedicated individual person at your company who is communicating and who is in charge of everything related to responsible gambling, because that's something our regulator finds most important. Then you have to make an agreement with what is called an addiction prevention policy expert. And that could be an individual, that could be an organization, that could be a company like ours. I'm not promoting myself because we have enough to do, but we have a big share in the market related to that. At the very same time, you have to work together with what is called an expert by experience. That's a former problem gambler, so to say. And you need to have a signed agreement with them as well, or with the individual. They both have to agree on the policy you have to produce and that you have to write for the regulator, and has to be accepted by the regulator. Not in all cases you have to agree on what the advisors tell you, but if you don't agree, you have to explain why you don't take it over, so to say. So you have to take all kinds of measures in regard to limitations as well. There's no kind of prescription that the government tells you not more than this amount of money or not more than blah, blah, blah. It's up to you. Though last week in Oslo, there was a statement of the chairman of the gambling authority in the Netherlands, and that means that they are considering at this very moment if they should put in active limits, so to say. From a personal point of view, I'm against it, because I always think if you talk about real responsible gambling, and if you talk about measures that you should take them on the same level as the industry's marketing efforts, so to say. In the old days, we had a kind of general policy on marketing and advertising, same information for everyone. Now everything is individualized, personalized, and I think we should do the same on the level of responsible gambling and problem gambling as well. So you have to be very active. Things related to mandatory training. It's in the law that you have to do mandatory training, basic training for everyone who is working for the company, even before he starts to work. So, by the way, I think that's crazy as well. But that's in the law. And for all those who are in direct contact with customers, there is a specialized training which is mandatory and has to be repeated every 2 or 3 years as well. So there's a lot to do, but honestly, as you know, and probably have seen, we have 20 license holders nowadays. Since number 20 is there since I think 2 days, which is Common, the original Swedish company. Kindred Unibet has one since a couple of months, I think. Betson, as I heard from Pontus Lindvall, is still waiting because they want to have 3 licenses as well. But don't ask me why this process is so slow. That's probably because the gambling authority is very strict and want to have straight answers to all their questions. In short, that's it.
Thank you, Pieter. Thank you, Pieter.